Welcome to G-UDRT Demystified, a short series of videos introducing common RT as required by UK student pilots. In this episode we look at distress and urgency calls, including fully vocalized examples of Mayday and Pan calls. Check out the G-UDRT app available for iOS and Android. It allows you to practice such calls for yourself using realistically branching simulated flights. Whilst flying in a light aircraft is fundamentally safe, it does have risks. As such, an important element of flight training is the use of the aircraft's radio to request assistance and ensure it is provided quickly. There are two states of emergency, the distinction between them being the severity of the problem faced. The more serious classification is distress and prompts the use of the Mayday call. This is used when a condition of being threatened by serious or imminent danger exists and immediate assistance is required. Examples of when a Mayday would be used include engine failure, a fire, loss of control, structural damage, serious pilot illness or incapacitation. The second classification is urgency. This is used when a condition concerning the safety of an aircraft, other vehicle or person exists, but which does not require immediate assistance. This would prompt a Pan call. Examples of when a Pan call would be used include an ill passenger, becoming lost, or a rough-running engine. Other than the level of immediate danger, Mayday and Pan calls are very similar and have the same structure. The call is preceded by Mayday 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 or Pan Pan, Pan Pan, Pan Pan as appropriate. This is followed by the call sign of the ground station, the aircraft's call sign and its type. Next, the nature of the emergency and the pilot's intentions and aircraft's position are given. Then the altitude and heading is provided. Finally, the pilot's qualifications and anything else that will help the controller is given. This last element should always include the number of people on board, or POB, for short. As it is a complex call and required in a potentially stressful situation, we suggest you remember it with the acronym SATNIP AHQA. Let's listen to a Mayday call transmitted by a pilot who has suffered an engine failure. In this example, the pilot has determined they will need to make a forced landing.
Mayday Mayday Mayday, Big Town Radar, Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, PA-38, engine failure, forced landing, north of power station, altitude 2,300 feet, heading 060 degrees, PPL, 2 POB.
The call will usually be acknowledged, but there may not be further communications from the ground station. In this case, the aircraft is at a relatively low altitude and has lost the engine. The controller here is likely to concentrate on organizing a search and rescue response rather than distracting the pilot at a critical time. In different circumstances, brief and pertinent information may be provided.
Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, Big Town Radar, Roger Mayday.
All other aircraft on the frequency should maintain radio silence following a Mayday call until either it is cancelled, the aircraft in distress has been transferred to another frequency, or the ground station gives permission for normal calls to resume. However, if required, the ground station will formally declare radio silence. This may be addressed to all, or an individual aircraft.
All stations, Big Town Radar, stop transmitting, Mayday.
Once an emergency has been declared, the pilot can cancel it if the situation is resolved. But be careful, a failing engine may restart temporarily, only to die again.
Big Town Radar, Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, cancel Mayday, engine restarted.
When appropriate, the ground station can be expected to give permission for normal calls to resume. For example,
all stations, Big Town Radar, distress traffic ended.
There are a few other points we should consider. 1. Upon receipt of a distress call, the ground station may choose to transfer their other traffic to an alternative ground station. This would be achieved with a call such as
Mayday, Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, remain this frequency, break. All other aircraft contact Old Crest Zone 118.280, out.
Point 2. If you are already in communication with a ground station when the issue occurs, make the call to that station. They will advise of any change in transponder setting, although as the pilot in command, You have the discretion to change the transponder setting to 7700, the emergency squawk. If you are not in contact with a ground station when the issue occurs, squawk 7700 on the transponder and then make a call to London Centre on 121 decimal 5. Once you are in communication with them, do not change frequency without telling the controller. Point 3. As we've seen, a pilot should state their qualification in both distress and urgency calls. This is the pilot's opportunity to let the ground station understand their abilities. It is common practice to state either PPL or student pilot. Indeed, we use PPL in many of our examples. However, this isn't strictly CAP 413 compliant. CAP 413 gives the following as qualifications to use: student pilot, no instrument qualification, IMC rating or full instrument rating. Speak to your instructor, but we use PPL for conciseness unless one of the above is more pertinent for the situation being faced. Point 4. The anything else of importance at the end of the emergency call is the pilot's opportunity to provide additional information that may assist the ground station in helping them. This should always include the number of people on board. It may also include the remaining endurance, limitations on aircraft performance, etc. With those points in mind, let's listen to an example PAN call. Here a student pilot is flying close to their home air traffic controlled airfield. Concerned about an issue with their engine, they request a return to the field.
Pan Pan, Pan Pan, Pan Pan, Vigtown Radar, Student Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, PA38. Rough running engine, request immediate join and return to field, overhead the junction, altitude 2,100 feet, heading 070 degrees, student 1 POB.
The controller may initially only acknowledge the call to give them time to prepare a response.
Student Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, Big Town Radar, Roger Pan.
However, an emergency call will prompt priority action appropriate to the pilot's skill level. In an example like this, the pilot can expect the controller to come back to them as soon as they are able to.
Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, cleared to enter controlled airspace, VFR. Straight in approach runway 05, wind light and variable, you are number 1.
Cleared to enter controlled airspace, VFR, straight in approach runway 05, number 1, Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango.
Let's now look at simulating a PAN call. A pilot is able to make a practice PAN call to London Centre on 121 decimal 5. However, note the following. 1. Only attempt to practice PAN to London Centre, not other ground stations. 2. Remember to listen out on the frequency before making the call so you don't interrupt a real or other practice emergency. 3. Never use the emergency squawk, 7700 for a practice PAN. 4. Never attempt a practice Mayday call. A practice PAN has a different approach to what we have seen so far. The pilot first announces that they are going to make a practice PAN call using the phrase practice PAN repeated 3 times.
Practice Pan, Practice Pan, Practice Pan, London Centre, Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango.
If the controller is not in a position to take a practice PAN, they will advise the pilot. Otherwise, you can expect to hear a response similar to the following.
Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, practice PAN acknowledged. Pass details when ready.
The pilot now makes the practice PAN call. Although already in communication with London Centre by this point, we suggest you use the SATNIP AHQA sequence in full, stating the ground station's call sign again. It will help build verbal muscle memory for if you ever need to make a real emergency call.
Practice Pan, Practice Pan, Practice Pan, London Centre, Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, PA38, rough running engine, request headings to nearest aerodrome, overhead River Town, altitude 3,000 feet, heading 165, PPL, 2 POB.
In this example, the controller comes straight back with the details requested. As we saw in the earlier examples, they may instead acknowledge the call first, then pass the details in a second call. However, the controller will use the practice pan as a training exercise for the real occurrence and treat it as a priority.
Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, nearest aerodrome is West Town, required track 270 degrees, range 5 miles.
West Town, track 270 degrees, range 5 miles, Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango.
We'll now look at how we can use emergency calls to summon assistance for another craft. There are 2 scenarios we will look at. The first explores how a pilot can relay an emergency call if they ever hear one go unanswered. In the second scenario, we will look at how a pilot can summon assistance if they identify another craft is in trouble. If you hear an emergency call, continue listening and if able, note down the details on your kneeboard. If the call is not acknowledged by the station being called, be prepared to relay it on behalf of the other pilot. In the following example, our pilot hears a Mayday call go unanswered.
Mayday, 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 Middletown Radar, Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta, PA38, engine fire, immediate forced landing, 3 miles south Rivertown, altitude 3,300 feet, heading 185, PPL, 1 POB.
After a short time with no response, the Mayday traffic may attempt another transmission. Preoccupied with the situation, the pilot might shorten the call as here.
Mayday, 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 Middletown Radar, Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta, PA38, engine fire. Immediate forced landing, 4 miles south Rivertown, altitude 2,100 feet, 1 POB.
If it appears that the emergency call is going unanswered, you could attempt to relay it. The call to do so has a specific format. To make it clear that it is another aircraft in trouble, you repeat their call sign twice.
Mayday, 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 Middletown Radar, Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, have intercepted Mayday from Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta. I say again, Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta, PA38, engine fire. Immediate forced landing, 4 miles south Rivertown, altitude 2,100 feet, heading 185, PPL, 1 POB.
Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, Middletown Radar, Roger, your relayed Mayday from Golf Whiskey Alpha Sierra Delta.
With the Mayday acknowledged, radio silence should be adopted as we saw earlier. So we'll progress to look at how a pilot can use a call to assist another craft. If you spot another aircraft, or indeed boat, and think that the craft's safety is threatened and it needs assistance, you make a pan call. Describe the situation and the location as best as you're able. The ground station may request additional details if required.
Pan pan, pan pan, pan pan, busy city radar, Golf Uniform Delta Romeo Tango, visual with an aircraft landed in rocky terrain, apparent forced landing, 1 mile west my position, 5 miles south tiny town.
A final point to remember is no matter what the situation, your first priority should be to fly the aircraft safely. Only make an emergency call if you have time and will not be distracted from more pressing concerns. Aviate, then navigate and finally communicate in that order. Thank you for watching. This is an important topic and there is more to know than we have covered in this video. If you want to learn more, the G-UDRT app looks at this topic in detail and allows you to practice what you have learned with dynamically simulated flights. In fact, G-UDRT covers everything from the very basics of RT, right through to long cross-country flights in varied airspace. You can download the app from your device's app store, or visit our website at www.g-udrt.co.uk.